Hello everyone, my name is Pat Bradley and I'm here today on behalf of the Sierra Nevada Logging Museum. As you can see, it is under construction and we are very, very excited today to be able to share with you how the project started, how far we've come, and how far we plan to go in the future. I'm sure that we would all agree that when a group of people get together and think that it's important to put a museum together, it's got to be because something is very, very precious, very important, very, very historical to preserve. And that's exactly what happened in 1991 when the United States Forest Service in Hathaway Pines conceived the idea of the Sierra Nevada Logging Museum. This was based on the tremendous role that the timber industry had in the development of California. And the Forest Service felt that also, rather than just our immediate area, that this entire Sierra Nevada region should be represented. So we have here 18 counties that this project includes, 17 other counties in Calaveras, from Lassen County clear down to Kern County. And the importance of the development of California, as I say, the timber industry role is what this whole concept was based on. In 1848, gold was discovered in California, as we all know. 1850, California became a state. And all of a sudden, thousands of people were on the scene, and there were no facilities. And they had to be, this need had to be met. There were no schools, there were no towns, there were the gold mines, quite often, as we see in this picture here in Sutter's Fort, Sutter's mill area, the sawmill they had right beside the gold mine. The need for the timber products was just unbelievable. And what really is amazing to me is that this tremendous need was there, but the equipment was so slow. For instance, it would maybe take 2 men on a misery whip saw to cut down a tree 35 inches in diameter, maybe an hour and a half, and then resort to livestock, pulling it into a mill, and eventually becoming lumber or logs for so many needs for the wood. We have trestles here for the trains. We had the heavy timbers for the to shore up the tunnels underneath the ground in the mines. We had railroads, we had towns, we had churches and schools, and the flumes alone that carried the water to the mines was tremendous. So this need was met, and it was not only so slow, the equipment, but the danger was so much. The domestic challenge that the families had, the wives and children, the long hours, and the lack of safety, and this alone would justify the reason for our museum. So anyway, having this value and concept, the Forest Service in 1991 started the project. They were able to acquire $130,000 from President Bush's grant under the Heritage Resource Program. And this money covered the cost of environmental impact report expenses, and also enabled a very fine writer, David Davis, a historian who wrote 5 local histories. And David even also interviewed 8 of our old timers we have on video, and just 2 of those people are living today, which is an example of the project not starting too early. David called me one time to ask me if, he said, I understand that you are the granddaughter of the Blagan Mill family. And I said, yes. And he said, well, I'd like to interview you. And so I hung up the phone and I told my husband, I said, why in the world would anyone want to ask me about my grandfather's sawmill? And anyway, I'd like to mention this because I think I may have been a very average example of people who were ignorant about the importance of the timber industry history. To me, I mean, I've fourth generation timber industry family. I've always been proud to have been able to live in the beautiful mountains, but I was a music teacher for 30 years. And to me, history was when my parents were small. I had no concept of all of the terribly important stages that this particular industry went through. And so I think that once we grasp the need to preserve this, that we get all the more excited about the museum itself. When the Forest Service had to choose a site, I might add that there was reason to choose the one that they chose, which is White Pines, and that is where we are today. White Pines is the historical site of where the Blagan sawmill was built in 1938 and operated till 1962. And that story alone is enough to build the basis of our museum here. The whole town of Calpine, up in Sierra County where my family was from, my brother and I were born in Reno, but we were living in Calpine the time we were born. The whole family, of all of the families on both sides of my family, and also about 90% of the town, all moved down from Sierra County down here to Calaveras. And this was nothing here in the White Pines area except a meadow and a forest and a couple of creeks. Arnold had a couple of gas pumps in Ebbets Pass Inn. There was a hotel up at Big Trees Park. Meadowmont was the Hunt's apple orchard. If you wanted groceries, you went to Murphy's. And so this didn't even have a road or power. And so the town of Calpine virtually moved the mill, took 4 trucks, four different trips, 4 days each trip to go down the Feather River Canyon and come up through Sacramento and make the trip up here. And while the people were waiting for the mill and the subdivision to be complete, there was a tent city out here where my grandmother on my maternal side lived. And within a year and a half, we had a brand new school, brand new post office, we had a grocery store, the subdivision was built across from Blagan Road, and right here on the site where the museum is, there were homes where mill workers could walk to the mill. We had the children walking to school. The loggers were they were hopping a candy wagon to go to the woods. The sawmill here is just down from where we are right here. The lake is here today, but the sawmill is just adjacent to the 6.5 acres where our building is. So in 1963, that was when the mill closed, and after that happened, the Corps of Engineers came in after the mill was torn down and the lake was built, and the Calaveras County Water District bought all of the property around the lake, and so we all lease this property from the Calaveras County Water District. The Logging Museum, the Moose Club, and the White Pines Park. So anyway, the Forest Service could no longer continue with this work. About 1993, they had to turn it over to the public because it was not possible for them to solicit the public for funds. So in 1993, there was a public meeting in Arnold, and the organization that we work with today, Friends of a Logging Museum, was created. And my son, Barry Ward, happened to be the first Friends of a Logging Museum president. And from that time on, it was just learn as we go. We were truly a grassroots group. We talked to mentors of museums. We talked to curators. We had let the word out that we needed artifacts, and we started fundraising. By 1995, we had our first employee, which was a bookkeeper. We had our first jamboree as a fundraiser on Labor Day weekend. And by 1998, we had an accumulation of artifacts that was unbelievable. And so we opened a temporary facility right next door at Hazel Fisher School, thanks to a portable classroom being available. We have been open on Saturdays from 10 to 4. Since then, we have a paid docent, and we have, although we haven't got room for all our artifacts, we do have a nice assortment, and it has been toured the last 4 years pretty readily. 1998, we, at that time, let's see, that was when we hired our first bookkeeper. And by 1999, we had had the temporary facility open, but we didn't have enough money even then to go ahead with the building. We'd have $25,000 or $30,000 in the bank. Had marvelous contributions from Georgia Pacific, from relatives, from friends, companies, but you have to have that big chunk of money before you can put a building together. So in 1999, thanks to my father, Howard Blagan, leaving $50,000 worth of stock, that was the first large chunk of money that we were able to have. And a year later, another man by the name of Ray Stevens, who was like a father to me, he was a real supporter of the museum, and he had a trust fund of $100,000 that was based on workman's compensation. He'd never had any money in his life, but a couple years before he died, he found that he was eligible after having been working in the shipbuilding field way back in the early 40s in Richmond. And he left us $100,000. So between those two chunks of money, with $150,000, last year we were able to get this beautiful building that we're in today. This is a picture of the outside, constructed. Our contractor was Richard Sokowski, who also is a marvelous builder, built the Arnold Library. As you can see, the building is in the shape of a sawmill. It simulates the filer's room up here. The filer was the most important man in the mill, and he was the highest paid to have to keep the saws so sharp. And so it looks like it's a 3-story building like the Blagan Mill, but actually it's just 1 story with our high ceilings and a large basement. So let's see, it's been almost a year, it'll be a year at the end of this summer, that this building was complete. And it overlooks the side of the Blagan Mill, which is White Pines Lake, where we have 4-pound trout. We have wonderful boating facilities, and White Pines Park is very close by, and it's pretty much an all-year-round facility. So that pretty much brings us up to date, almost. We are in desperate need of financial help. We're looking into the possibilities of people taking part in legacy planning. Also, we're after major donors. We have a recent cookbook that we have as a fundraiser that we've put together about a year and a half ago. This is a sesquicentennial edition. It has 150 years worth of history and a lot of fine recipes. And our newest addition to the project, we're very proud of, is this is a Shea locomotive that is right now in Boulder City, Nevada. And this Shea is very historic. It logged in the Yosemite area, and it will be brought to Oakdale within the next 2 years and refurbished and will be put here on site. And there's talk of it even running for a maybe quarter of a mile on track. And so this is a fundraising framed photo of the prints that we're selling. these are they're selling at $60 a piece for funds to pay for the shea. It's a little bit more than half paid for. And then here we have this is a brand new artist rendition of the Blagan Mill in the background here, with two very large logs, probably about 8 feet in diameter. And this picture was just, if you went to our local Calaveras County Fair, the Frog Jump, this picture has been wood burned on a beautiful picnic table, which will be raffled at the September 1st Jamboree here at White Pines Park. And this is a Arnold Rotary project. And the man that did the wood burning is Ron Glass of Dorrington. So this kind of gives you an idea of the new things we're dealing with. And as I said, our next Jamboree will be September 1st. And it's a lot of fun for everyone. It's from 10 to 4 on a Sunday during Labor Day weekend. We have a lot of good food, good music, a lot of wood-related booths, and of course we have a tour of this building and the temporary facilities. Our phone number to call would be 209-728-1407. That's for Pat and Ron Bradley. My husband, Ron Bradley, is president of Friends of a Logging Museum this year, and I would like to add that we have given many school tours during the week that are specially arranged, and now that we have this building, it's a sure thing that the whole project is going to develop. People after 9 or 10 years wondering, when are we going to have a building? And so what we need is some real major donors, and we have applied for many grants, and so far that hasn't been there hasn't been much happening there, but it is a fact, we've learned through classes, that 75% of all nonprofit financial help comes from individuals. And so we really want to get the word out and have people that are really interested in the preservation of the timber industry to get more involved. And we have a meeting every month on the second Wednesday, and that's at 7 o'clock at the Temporary Museum. And we, as I say, we need help in many ways. So by calling that number 728-1407, that would be the way to get in touch. Thank you.